Tonight, we continue our conversations with those campaigning to be the next leader of the Saskatchewan Party. Although she was never elected as an MLA, Alanna Koch certainly knows about politics. She has more than 30 years' experience working on federal and provincial political campaigns. She's been a chief of staff to cabinet ministers and has worked closely as a senior advisor to Brad Wall and Grant Devine. She is Premier Brad Wall's deputy minister and cabinet secretary, essentially the province's top civil servant, although she is currently taking an unpaid leave to campaign for leader. Hi, Alanna.
Hi, Jill.
Thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for the opportunity.
If you could turn back the clock, what's something that you would have liked the government to have handled differently?
Well, I think last year's budget was a tough one, and absolutely some of the tough decisions needed to be made. I think the difference that I would have done was probably gotten out a little bit more on information on what the options were that we were considering, getting a little bit more outside advice in from those who were most impacted. That's probably the most significant thing that I would have changed over the last year or so.
What have you seen in government that makes you want to create this Premier's Council, something that you've put forward as an idea?
Well, it's a style that I used when I was Deputy Minister of Agriculture. Having come from the industry myself, it was very clear to me when I got into government that not enough information was coming out from the outside for us to consider in our decisions. So it's a model that I used in a more informal way, frankly, when I was Deputy Minister of Agriculture. So I'd get that outside advice in. So when I considered running for this leadership race, I just really believed in that, more, in fact, formal way of ensuring that in a very disciplined way, at least once or twice a year, we were, actually asking for advice from the outside, that it would be information that was available for me as Premier, but also for Cabinet. And then we would ensure that just from a style perspective, we were always going out and getting the best advice possible, both from within the public service and amongst caucus and Cabinet, but also from those who are outside, that whether they're business people, industry leaders, community leaders, Indigenous leaders, whatever the case might be, they've got advice that they need to provide to us, and that way we get the best decisions made.
Why do you want to go from a behind-the-scenes role to the very public life of being a politician and the Premier of the province?
Well, prior to coming into government for the last 10 years, I did have a very visible and public role. Now, granted, it was in the private sector, but as Executive Director of the Western Canadian Wheat Growers, as a board member of Agriculture United, as President of the Canadian Agri-Food Trade Alliance, and as a school trustee, I did have a really public role, and I was out speaking all the time about things. And then, of course, the last 10 years, I've been a Deputy Minister. As Deputy Minister of Ag, I actually was out quite a bit, talking to industry and to the public, but clearly, as Deputy Minister to the Premier, my role was very much internal. That was my role, but I've almost had more experience being external than internal, and it was really something that I really felt I wanted to put that experience into action and really serve people in this new role.
That being said, would you want to be an MLA in a general election if you didn't win this leadership race?
Well, I intend to win, first of all, is what I would say. But if I'm not successful as Premier, we'll have to see what happens in 2020. Right now, my home riding isn't open. I think it's really important that you run in your home riding. If you're not, if I'm a leader, I clearly need to find a seat right away. And I've indicated I would run in a by-election right away if I was elected as Premier, because I know it's important to have a seat in the House. I've got to wait and see what happens in 2020.
What's your top priority if you do win this election?
My top priority is to make sure that our plan continues to be focused on growth, and that growth leads to a better quality of life for everyone, and that we then bring our team together around those plans for growth. So I've talked about, a vision out to 2030 being focused on growth and prosperity, and that we can continue to provide the programs and services to serve those who are more vulnerable and to serve Saskatchewan people. But it's going to be really important that we bring the team together, that we have a strong Saskatchewan Party, a strong government, and I absolutely am interested in doing that if elected as leader.
And tell us about the budget. You mentioned how difficult it was this last round and what we could expect going forward. Are there any changes that would be significant to the people of Saskatchewan?
Yeah, Jill, what I've talked about during the campaign, very specifically on the insurance tax, is that I'm going to do an immediate review. I know changes need to be made there. I've absolutely heard right across Saskatchewan that there's been all kinds of unintended consequences as a result of that tax. So I definitely am going to have an immediate review. I've also indicated with respect to the budget that I would take an additional year to get to balance. I do know whether it's the changes to the insurance tax or having a look at maybe one or two other things that have maybe had unintended consequences, that we are going to need to stretch that balanced budget plan out for a year. So those are the two most significant things that I could mention with respect to the upcoming budget.
As you know, 3 other candidates are alleging that one of the campaigns may have been provided with debate questions before the Weyburn debate. Did you receive any information from Executive Counsel prior to the Weyburn debate that addressed issues that were raised during that debate?
You know, I was not aware of what any of the questions were at any of the debates, not Weyburn or otherwise. I have been a senior public servant advising the Premier and ministers for the last 10 years. It was my job to be well prepared. All of us have been traveling around the province. We all could fully expect what those questions were going to be in the debates. All I did was make sure that I was as prepared as possible for any of the questions that were going to come up, including the debate in Weyburn. So there's no
briefing
truth.
notes or anything that should be concerning to the other candidates?
Absolutely, any information I had was available to all the candidates, so I didn't get any different information that anybody else didn't have. So I've said all of those allegations are false, and I absolutely, had no inside information with respect to the questions.
Why then do you think there is concern among 3 candidates that you received this information, including Gord Wyand, who's a former Justice Minister? He's seen something that concerns him. Do you know anything about what that would be?
Well, all I can tell you, I don't know what it's about. All I can tell you is I appreciate the acknowledgement that my other candidates that I'm running against have acknowledged that I did really well in the debates. In fact, I've said if I had any information prior to the debates, I would have expected to do even better on the debates. But I have no idea what they're inferring, but I can tell you that all of the accusations are false.
The head of the teachers union is asking teachers to take out political party memberships in order to have a say in this leadership race. Why do you think teachers should vote for you?
Well, I had a chance to talk to teachers myself on the campaign trail, and in fact did a video with the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation on what my plans are for education. I think why teachers need to be interested in me as leader is because I've talked about reestablishing that trust relationship with teachers, getting out and talking to them, getting their best advice as to what they need in the classroom, what are the resources that it's going to take to make sure that our kids are getting absolutely the best quality education they can get. I'm committed to reestablishing that relationship with teachers. I've also said that I'm really focused on local school board governance. I think that's absolutely vital, and so establishing that relationship with trustees as well, and then making sure that within the resources we have that we make the absolute best decisions we can. I know teachers have got ongoing increasing challenges in the classroom, so I want to hear from them as to what it's going to take to get the best results we can for the resources they need, and then for, of course, the best education we can get for Saskatchewan children.
All right, thanks for your time today, Alanna. I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks so much, Jill. Appreciate the opportunity.